Hey everyone, it is Thursday. In case you're like me, I woke up today and thought it was Wednesday for some reason for about an hour, but it is Thursday and you are at Litvak Leadership Live, and I am here with my new good friend, Nick Bogacz. Did I say your name right?
Hey, you nailed it. Glad to be here, Sean. Thank you.
Awesome. Nick, so excited to have you here. You are probably the fourth or fifth pizza guy from the fraternity of pizza, as I like to refer to it. You guys are a close-knit group, and everyone seems to have a different spin on pizza. So you've done so much. I'm not even sure where to begin. Why don't you give everyone a couple minute overview of who Nick Bogacz is, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I started in the pizza business in 1996. I worked for a lot of the big boys. I started as a pizza delivery driver. I worked for Papa John's, worked for Domino's, worked my way up through management, had really a 16-year journey till I finally got to open up my own pizza shop. Throughout that journey, I kept hearing a lot of things from friends and family. I started my family with my wife very young. We had my baby girl when we were 20 and 21, and we had my son when we were 23 and 20. So I heard a lot of, you need to get that quote unquote real job. I heard that all the time. So I did things like where I sold radio advertising, tried to get out of the pizza business, did it for about 6 months. Anybody out there who does cold calling, bless your heart, but it wasn't for me. And before I knew it, I was back in the pizza business, and I was running shops. I was back into delivering pizzas, 3 different shops I was delivering for. And then I kept hearing the same thing, even though I had bought a $170,000 home from delivering pizzas at 3 different shops. I kept hearing that I don't have that real job. So I went ahead, and that's when, again, I took the post office test and became a mailman. And
wow.
Everybody said, wow, you're a mailman. That's fantastic. I had the truck I would drive around, deliver the mail. You sort it all in the morning. And I realized when I went there to work there that's where dreams go to die. It's one of those places you just go there to work, Sean, and you realize, okay, I can work here the next 30 years, come in, punch out for the next 30 years. And that's it. That's your life. And I said, you know what? That's not me. I said, I don't know why it's pizza, but that's what I'm good at. That's what I love. And for 4 years, I delivered the mail. I also delivered 3 different pizza delivery jobs. And I also was counting money at the Civic Arena where the Pittsburgh Penguins play. So I had 5 jobs, working 90 hours a week. Tony Robbins was in my ear for, a good bit of those hours while I was working, delivering the mail. And I just kept knowing that I had a higher purpose than being a mailman. So long story short, one of the shops that I was delivering at asked me to be the general manager because they knew my background. And it was a very good friend of mine was the general manager. They said they were going to fire him. I, of course, said, no, I cannot take his job, even though I had the 5 jobs. So I kept chugging along with the 5 jobs. In a year, they came to me and said, hey, we're going to fire his replacement. I didn't have any ties to him. So I thought this is a great way to cut down to 2 jobs. So I went ahead and delivered the mail, and I ran a Papa John's in the Oakland part of Pittsburgh, which is the college town. And I would work, 85, 90 hours a week. It was a store that was there for 22 years. It never did $1 million in sales. The profits were $27,000. In the first year that I ran it, I took it to $147,000 in profit. And it was a $1 million store. So at that time, I went to the owners who owned a bunch of Taco Bells, Arby's, gas wells, real estate. Just really all I was a number to them. And I said, hey, look, this is what I did for you guys. I'm just asking that maybe you meet me somewhere in between what I make in the 2 jobs so I can just have 1 job. And they said, you know what, Nick, the reality is if you ever left here, we just probably would sell the Papa John's part of our business. And that was it. That's all I needed to hear. I started walking into pizza shops in Oakland and College Town. And I said, sell me your pizza shop. And they would say, get the hell out of here. The fifth guy I walked into, he said to me, you know what? My buddy has a shop for sale over in Bloomfield, which is a little bit over the bridge. I walked in, I looked around, I said, oh shit, it's a bar. I went in the back and full pizza kitchen, everything I needed. I sat down with the owner, had a full liquor license. He said, everything's $185,000. I said, that's great. I want to buy it. He said, fantastic. I'm happy to sell it to you. And I said, the only thing is I don't have any money. he said, what do you mean you don't have any money? And I said, well, how am I going to pay you for it? And he said, what do you mean, how do you got to pay me for it? I said, well, I told him all my history and my story. And he said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. For the next 9 months, you give me everything that you saved in profit. I'll use it as a down payment, and then I'll finance you for the next 5 years. No banks, no nothing, a handshake, and the rest is history. That was the start of Caliente Pizza Drafthouse.
And what year was that?
2012.
2000. So recent in the big picture of life.
Right, sure is.
Fantastic. So I got to ask you, and Mark Gassert brought it up. So cold calling, you say you hate cold calling. Mark's calling it warm engagements, and God love you, Mark, but that's sales talk. Don't you have cold calling in the pizza world? I mean, you're reaching out to people to get them to come in and eat your product. Isn't that kind of cold calling?
What I'm talking about when I say cold calling is when you walk into a furniture store and you ask for the owner, and then you try to tell this owner that how your radio is going to make him sell 18 more mattresses this month. Because, that's the cold calling. That it just wasn't for me. It really wasn't. Now, I had no problem in my time at the radio station when they would say, hey, Nick, this Indian restaurant called, or whoever it may be, this car dealership, and they want to buy advertising. So they already want to buy it. I could go in there and come back to the boss and say, here's what I sold them. No problem at all. I just couldn't get the nerve up to walk into all these other places and get no. And you know what? It worked out perfect for me because I wouldn't want to be doing that anyway.
So tell me, how do you define leadership? Because it sounds like you've got a ton of experience, so I bet you have a unique vision of it.
Well, I appreciate that introduction. So I think it all starts with yourself, how you hold yourself accountable. And, from that time with the first store, we have grown the store to really 4 employees at one store to 5 locations now with over 150 and pre-COVID, close to 200 employees. So you do have to have some leadership to be able to develop a team like that. And I really think a lot of it starts with yourself. So I really try to be self-aware, try to know myself, know my strengths, know my weaknesses, and really try to take all the blame myself. If there's anything that ever goes wrong in my business, sometimes what I have to do is put my dog on a leash and go for a long walk. And sometimes it might be 45 minutes, sometimes it might be an hour. But whenever I get to that point that I finally can figure out where I went wrong in the problem, then I feel like, all right, now I can start to correct the issue and learn from it. And I think that's really, the part of leadership that I always want to be the guy that's blaming himself and putting it on himself for the team, because a lot of times people are looking for that leader. There's a lot of people that can just push off anything. There's excuses for everything, right? So anytime that anything goes wrong, you can usually find an excuse for it if you really want to. And I think the true leaders, they go out there and they pin it on themselves, and they make themselves better. They make their team better. And I think the other part of my leadership that really makes a big difference is communication. A lot of times where teams break down is there's a lack of communication. In sports rooms, it's the locker room is so key. And, I think when you get into businesses, behind the scene in meetings is so key. You have to make sure that you're holding consistent meetings. I think a big challenge for us is when we went from 2 stores really with everybody. I knew basically what everybody ate for breakfast and that where their kids went to school. And I knew everybody really well, 20, 30 people. We got to the 3rd store, is the biggest store we had. 40 people started on day 1. So now we had 70 employees, double the size of the company. And I didn't know everybody on the same level that I knew. So really we started with, rather than saying, hey, we're going to have a meeting, then you don't pick a time or anything for it. We have management meetings for all the GMs, a phone call every Monday at 8:00, no matter what. We have first Tuesday of every month. We have our team managers, like 35 people, all on a Zoom call. And then the 3rd Tuesday of every month, it's an upper management meeting. Then we've got quarterly manager meetings with the GMs in person. We've got executive meetings with my executive team. We have I have a social media team that we meet with every other Tuesday. So it's really all about communication. I think that's the way you lead. When people know your clear path, they're more apt to follow that clear vision.
So many places we can go with that. The first place we're going to go is to our mutual friend, Eric Bam. that he talks about how you were one of the first people to use that he saw using video and social media to go right to your customers and let them know what's happening. When did you start using video on social media? And, what did it feel like for you at first? And with the caveat that, feelings lie. So go ahead.
Well, sure. So I think marketing is really important in a business. It really gives you your lifeline. And that's one thing that I've always been really good at is finding what works at the moment and then beating it to death, beating that dead horse. Way back when, it might have been something like door hangers worked really well in our industry. And then, really what happened, the growth of Caliente behind, everything, the leadership and the hard work and the recipes and everything else. But the little unknown secret of what happened is in 2012, I found paid Facebook advertising. So think about it. Everybody knows about paid Facebook advertising now, but in 2012, nobody was really talking about paying for Facebook ads. I had just happened to decide to be part of Pittsburgh Craft Beer Week, and they had 10,000 followers on Facebook. And basically I said, if we sell craft beer, we should be part of Craft Beer Week. So I get on there, they have 10,000 followers, they pump us up, and that week we do double in sales. Wow. And I said, wow. I said, we have 700 followers on Facebook. If I had 10,000 followers on Facebook, I could do double the sales. So my whole drive for that year was to figure out how to get 10,000 followers. So I called Facebook, and at the time they said, give us $1,500. We'll show you how to use all the behind the scenes and the logistics of it and the analytics, and we'll teach you how to do paid Facebook advertising. So I went ahead and did that. And before I know it, we went from not having a hostess to needing a hostess, from having one bartender to needing two, to having 3 cooks to needing 6, to having 3 phone answerers to having 6, from having a 1-floor bar and restaurant to taking this little dumpy downstairs and building a beautiful speakeasy so we could fit 50 more people down there. So It was all through social media. And then as social media and Facebook has grown, different trends have come and gone. And really what I saw was video is so important. And of course, anybody, when they start to get on video for the first time, they feel uncomfortable. It's kind of natural to feel uncomfortable. They almost start to talk like in a different voice when they're doing the video. So, it's kind of, that's just the way it is, right? But as you get on video and you get more comfortable and you're comfortable in your own skin, and you almost forget about the camera and you just talk directly to it and you put on just a good video. Like, people want to see behind the scenes. If we've learned something throughout the years, when you see how successful reality TV was, it's because they want to see behind the scenes. So that's what we've done at Caliente. We actually have these one week, every week vlogs, and we show everybody behind the scenes. And, some people on our team like to be on video. Some people don't. And we figured out which ones like to be on there. And they're front and center. And we've had a lot of great videos, and seems like people really enjoy our videos. And then over time, we did things like hire a videographer to spruce them up and put some graphics on them and really make them a nice production.
So that is tremendous. So you were ready for COVID, basically. When everyone said, what are we going to do? You already had the base on your various social media platforms. You were already on video. You were so far ahead. I want to ask you about your weekly meetings with your teams, because team meetings are an interesting animal. And my question is, how do you share enough of your vision to excite your team, but at the same time not overwhelm them with how are we going to do that?
You have to know the pulse of the room, and at different times throughout the year and different months and different weeks, it's got a different pulse, and you have to know that pulse. That's where, daily communication comes in. It's not just we're going to have a meeting once a week or once every other week, and that's it. That's the only communication. That's the scheduled communication. Now, what we also have is just daily communication, where I'll pick up the phone and call the general manager. Hey, how's it going today? Tell me about your day. What's going on? And same thing with the executive guys that I have. We're calling them and talking about it. Tell me what problem you're working through. Where can I help you? What's the solution look like? And we're having all that communication in between there. So when you get to the meeting, a lot of times the vision is already there for the most part. When we have a big meeting usually in January where we spell out the year's vision and, the company vision from the yearly goals. And I do a unique thing, I think, with 35 people that work for me. I require them all to give me 10 goals to turn them in. We hold them, quarterly. I'll reach back, send their goals back out to them through email, let them take a look at them. And, from those 35 emails, sometimes there's some great ideas in there that we use as our company goals as well. So I think, the vision's always there, and knowing when to introduce new vision by knowing where your team stands. And then I think the other thing that makes our meetings really productive is you have to have a script. I always start the meeting with the same way, some very key points, fundamental stuff, something as crazy maybe that you wouldn't think would start a meeting, but we always start the meeting, 5 stores. We found a lot of times that gossip kills the stores. What'll happen is, somebody from one store delivers cheese to the next, and they start telling about, Julie's problems at the store and who she's dating and everything else. And by the time it gets to another store and it gets back to Julie's crying and ready to quit. So, one of the things we say at every meeting is don't shit in the pool, don't swim in the pool. Cut the gossip out. And we say that. Yeah, we say that every single meeting. Then we go over the mission statement. Then we read ways we deal with customers and some other things. And then I give like maybe the month's vision statement. And then from there, my executives, they teach. We have turned the meetings into a teaching meeting. So they'll go ahead and that big meeting with everybody, they teach whatever it may be. They want to teach how to make a new product, how to use a new computer program, whatever it may be. The front of the house teaches something. The back of the house teaches something. The marketing team will teach something. Maybe it's coupon redemption or whatever it'll be. And then we actually have started where in the last 2 years where our GMs, each meeting, a GM will come up and they'll do a presentation and teach something.
Wow.
So that's that meeting. And then what's different is not every meeting has to be the same. When we get the upper management together, it's more of a meeting to try and figure out where's the company going. So it's a roundtable type discussion. It's what do you guys need? What can we help you with? And then if we have projects, that's where we break off in the teams, give the projects to the certain people in each team, and then we go ahead and kind of divide and conquer.
So I got to ask you, but I got to write something down first because otherwise I will forget. All this information you have, all these ideas you have, all your positive attitude. I know you had Tony Robbins as an earworm, coaching you, but I am just assuming that there is a level of faith within you that comes from somewhere else other than Tony Robbins. Am I right? Am I wrong? Tell me about that.
Well, of course, I think there's definitely a spiritual side. Then there's the side of having a great father who always gave me good advice, whether I wanted it or not. And, and not just in my adolescence, but even as I became into a young man. And I think that definitely shaped me. But then I also think there's been a lot of self-discovery too. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of miss sometimes is really to get in and find themselves. And I think when you have that deep level of getting to know yourself, you can really gain a lot of experience out of that. And I think that a lot of it came through that. And then I think a lot of times young entrepreneurs struggle with trying to find a mentor. When you hear that, because you hear it all the time, you need a mentor. A lot of times you think, well, what am I supposed to do? Walk down a rich neighborhood and knock on a door and ask a guy if he could be my mentor? And that's not really the idea. The idea is, anybody that you latch onto and learn from can be your mentor. Tony Robbins never met me, wouldn't know my name, but I spent so much time with him that he became a mentor at that point in my life. And then, from him, then you pick up somebody else. Every book that I was reading at the time, it kept talking about this book, Think and Grow Rich. So once I picked up Think and Grow Rich and read it, my mind shifted and I really got into the law of attraction, and I found Bob Proctor, and I've grasped onto everything that Bob Proctor teaches, and so many audiobooks and seminars that I've gone to live. And, he became a big mentor. But at the same time, and then there's been personal mentors that just come into your life through experience that as somebody introduces you to them and you realize like, hey, the more you talk to them, that maybe it's not ever like a handshake, you're my mentor, but they become your mentor. And I think, you learn from other people, and you learn when you're at different points in your life. But I really think a lot of it starts with self-awareness and that self-discovery of yourself.
So Ron Goodwin has a question. Did you really crack up your car on day one?
So that was one of the first ones. So, when I started delivering pizzas the very first day, I took my delivery. I was so happy. I ran out to the car, and 17 years old. And the story goes, the guy was a Turkish guy who hired me. His name was Ufuk, Ufuk. So he had to change his name to Tony. So when people call up and complain, they wouldn't get offended. But Ufuk told me, I said I can work every day, 3 to close. I'll be your delivery driver. And he said, you're hired. And then he said, how old are you? And I said 17. And he said, you tell nobody, because you couldn't be under 18 and deliver. Wouldn't you know it, my first delivery, I wrecked my car. And I went back. He was super busy on the oven. I kind of gave him the pizzas and left. I asked my mom if I could deliver in her car. She gave me her car for the following week. That worked for about 2 months till I wrecked her car. And that's really how I ended up inside and decided to learn how to manage and work my way through the kitchen.
That is an amazing story. So we have talked about so many things already. I want to get to some of your websites here. So when we look at this, so here is the nickbogacz.com, where people can learn about your podcast and your book. So tell us about the podcast.
Sure. So it kind of starts with the book, to be honest. I wrote my book, The Pizza Equation, back in February of 2019. And it really seemed like it hit well in the industry. And I was getting a lot of people DMing me on different social media platforms and asking me for guidance. I had people that would actually came up from Florida, and they would walk through, one couple walked through all my stores. I took them on a Sunday through every single store because they were getting ready to open a store, and started to speak in different seminars. I was through the book. I got asked to give a keynote speech at the Pizza and Pasta Expo in Atlantic City. And I just felt like, boy, if I could help the pizza industry, and saw so much came from it, a lot of everything that I've been through, I felt like really translates to small business in general, and not just helping folks in the pizza industry, but I could help, entrepreneurs ready to get into small business. So I decided to launch the podcast, The Business Equation, and we launched it about maybe 19 months ago, and now we're up to I think close to 80 episodes we just recorded, the 80th episode yesterday, and it drops every Thursday. The first 20 or so was just tips and tactics from me, and then I realized I think I want to have some guests on, but in the beginning I wasn't. Goes back to what we're talking about in video and being comfortable. Takes a while to get comfortable behind the mic as well. And
sure.
Right. And what happened was I started to get comfortable. And my first guest was a fantastic one. It was Jim Rooney, who's his dad was Dan Rooney, owner of the Steelers. So Jim Rooney, partners in the Steelers, wanted to be on the podcast and talk about business and really a lot about his book at the time. And I had him on. It was a fantastic interview. And from there, I was kind of hooked on trying to find some great guests. And I've been able to reach out and have a vast majority of entrepreneurs on the show, a lot of different aspects of business. And every week we really try to go through and find out what the equation is to their success. And really what we found out through doing the podcast is it has really become a mindset focused podcast, because a lot of the equation and the secret to their success is their mindset and that positive outlook on life.
I am writing down because you have so many pearls of wisdom. So you've got the book. Eric is greatly disappointed that he is still waiting for his invitation to be a guest. Just throwing that out there, showing the Eric love.
Well, we got one rule on the podcast. That's no Patriot fans.
Oh, well, and I'm all there with you on that.
I take that back because I've got a big guest coming up in February. He's always got his Patriot hat on, but I don't know, maybe no Patriot fans in Oklahoma.
They're even better. So tell us about perfectingpizza.com.
Sure. So perfectingpizza.com is a subscription-based website. I'm partners in it with some other great pizzaolis. Basically, what's in there is anything to start a pizzeria. And it's a $24.99, a subscription-based website. We even have a pizza coach subscription that's available for $99 a month. And what that gets you is access to the 5 professionals to be able to ask us questions about your floor plans, your menus, your P&Ls. And really, it's a great way for somebody that's in the pizza business that just wants that professional to lean on.
It looks like a great website. So when you're looking for personal motivation, where do you turn?
Boy, that's a great question. You know, when you look for personal motivation, and I think it just comes from within, really. You know, and when you say that, the other reason is like, oh, how does it come from within? You know, and are you talking about like right now, or in the beginning, or just like maybe next week? Like, where's that motivation going to come from? But I really think what you need is a why. And that's where the motivation can come through, you know, and that why has to be really big. And I think a lot of times people think, well, you know, my why is because I want my kids to go to college. Okay, that's great. That's your why. But why do you want your kids to go to college? Well, I want my kids to go to college because I didn't go to college. Okay, well, why? Well, I want them to go because I didn't go because I don't want them to struggle like me. Well, why? Well, I don't want them to have to look their kids in the face like I did and tell them that I don't know where their lunch money is going to come from tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay, that's a real why right there. You want your kids to be able to really provide for their family at a young age, not at, you know, figuring it out for 15 years. So, you know, when you dig back that onion and just peel it back and really get to that why, when something happens like COVID and you're sitting there with, you know, all these businesses going on and everything's crashing around you, and you got to figure out why, you know, what am I going to do? I got to work, you know, 18, 19 hours, maybe not sleep for the next 2 weeks and redesign my whole menu, my delivery area, my model of pickup and delivery. You got to, you know, figure out how to do curbside and everything. Like, what's going to keep you going for that 18, 19 hours a day for the next 2 or 3 weeks and figure it all out? Well, you got to realize you got a big enough why to just really push through that. And I think that's the kind of things you need. When you never know in business when things are going to come in, they're just going to shake your whole world. And I think when that happens, you better have a big enough why that's going to keep you motivated.
You talk about how, and I don't remember if you said this before when it was just us or when it was all of us here together, how you and your wife started young, you had your kids when you were young. Is your pizza business and just your motivational and the podcast, is it a family affair at this point, or is it something you're going to be bringing them into?
Well, my kids are old in relative terms. You know, my daughter's 20, my son's 18. So okay. My daughter, you know, they were 12 and 10 when we started. So my daughter has grown up in the business. She started off in the kitchen a little bit, and then really she started taking a ton of pictures for our social media, even at a young age, because she's really loves photography and is actually really, really good at it. So perfect natural fit for social media. Somebody, you know, those kids knew Instagram before we knew what Instagram was. And she was great at it. And then she worked a lot in the back office. And then when it was time to decide to go to college, and she decided to go to college, and she's studying business. So she's off, you know, learning all the different types of things you can learn at college right now. And really, you know, the sense of what I gave her when she left, and the tip I gave her was, you know, make relationships. That's what college is all about. Go make as many good relationships as you can. So that's what she's off doing. And then my son, he's been making pizza since he was 10 years old, and he loves it. And I think, you know, he wants to probably keep going. He seems like he really loves it, and he loves to cook. So he's going to go to the Culinary Institute of America next fall semester. And, you know, whether it's pizza that he decides to do in the future, or if he comes back and wants to use his chef degree in a different industry, he might end up doing that as well. But it seems like he really just loves food. Even before we had the businesses, he loved baking cookies with grandma, and always, you know, baking pies and everything else. So, you know, he's always been a big part of the business. And when we open these new stores, you know, he's on that quote unquote team of the new team that goes in and kind of trains everybody. Even, 16-year-old kid, he's in there showing guys that we just hired how to put pepperonis on pizzas and stuff like that. And he still works, at the last store that was the brand new one 2 years ago. He's stayed out there for the last 2 years, and he's a shift leader out there and has a set of keys, opens, closes, and so they're definitely part of it. My wife is, very instrumental in the business. She is very good at the design aspect of it. She does the whole design of the restaurants. We're not just a pizzeria. We're 150 seats, 24 taps, beer coolers with 150 different takeout beers. So she really designs the front of the house and the feel and the look of the way that the stores look. So that's really her purpose in it.
Fantastic. So for our 30-minute show, we've gone to 31 minutes already. So we're at the point now where I turn it over to you, and you tell the viewers and those who will be here later on replay, encourage them. I guess the topic I'm going to hand you is encourage them on what they can be, because it sounds like you knew what you were, but you knew what you could be. Talk about that.
Well, I think the biggest thing you have to do is you have to forget your past, and I think sometimes that's easier said than done. Maybe there's something that you really have to dig deep and forgive yourself for, or maybe forgive somebody else for. But you can start from anywhere. You can start from right now. You can start from today, and you really can build whatever you can think of. You just have to put it down on paper, get it out of your head. It's a dream when it's in your head. It starts to become reality when you write it down. And you work through it. If you've got your end goal, then you figure out what little goals work along the way to reach your end goal. But the biggest thing is, I think people get caught up in the voices that they hear from maybe friends or family, or what they're conditioned for their whole life, where people tell them they can't do this or they can't do that, or our family's never done that, or, money's evil, or whatever, all these things that you hear. And you just gotta let that go. Let the past go. Explore yourself, find out what your strengths are, your weaknesses, embrace them. Sometimes it's good to work on your weaknesses and get better at them. Sometimes it's just, when you get to the point you can hire for your weaknesses. So, but you need to kind of develop that sense that you can do it no matter what, you're not going to fail. But the biggest thing is, everybody wonders, like, how do they start? And that's what I'm telling you, is just start now. Start anywhere, put the past behind you, and start today. And this is on a smaller level.
People have asked me, they're like, how did you start doing a daily live stream? I said, well, I lined up some guests, and then I just went, and then I just did it. So I get it. Just start. Great advice. Nick, thank you so much for being my guest today on Litvak Leadership Live. You've got a tremendous amount of information. You've built a huge business, and frankly, you are one of the most positive people that I've met. Thank you for being my guest.
Honored. Thanks for such kind words. Thank you, Sean.
You bet. And everyone else, that's Litvak Leadership Live for today. Join us again tomorrow at 3:30 Eastern, where we'll have another interesting guest on, hearing their views on leadership. But boy, they've got the mountain ahead of them to come on after Nick. So have a great day, everyone. Bye now.